with talking about Bump Health, where it started and where it's at now, and sort of the family of companies that lives there.
Yeah. So keep me honest here. So Bump Health is about 4 years old now. I've got 3 other co-founders in the company. Let's just talk about what we are today, and then we can go back to where we started and wherever you like. But where we are today is we are 100% internally held. Frankly, I'm probably the only outside investor, if you will, but even that doesn't mean anything. So we're bootstrapped effectively. We are at about a $40 million run rate right now across our family of companies. And we have about 100 employees. About 80% of them are at our headquarters in Peoria, Illinois. And about 20% are distributed mostly around the United States. I think we have 1 or 2 maybe overseas now. But that's the high level of what we are today. I'm trying to think of how to tell the story, right? Because in hindsight, I can always make it sound smoother and cleaner and more well thought out than it actually was.
No mistakes ever, probably.
Correct. No, absolutely. We are infallible, of course. By the way, if somebody's listening to this on audio only, they're going to miss the sarcasm on that one. But anyway, so let's talk about what it is. So Bump Health, when we started this thing, the big sort of goal was, you look at like large companies in the women's health space as a whole. The women's health space is large and fragmented and sort of barbelled. And it doesn't matter whether you look at it from the lens of consumer product goods, healthcare, finance, childcare, lead gen, whatever it is, anything across the women's health space is highly fragmented and barbelled. And what I mean by that is on the one side of the barbell, you have massive legacy companies making billions and billions of dollars. So think of like Procter and Gamble. It's 187 years old. It owns every product that a mom or a person would put on their body, whether it's shaving cream, you're nodding, so you get it. And so you have these massive media companies, J2 Health, J2, What to Expect. I mean, again, that's that side of the barbell. And then on the other side of the barbell, you have lots of, niche, small companies that mean well, but like I look at that and we all looked at that and we're like, man, that's crazy. And so just to fast forward a little bit, the core premise was, man, what would a company like Procter and Gamble look like if it started today with a deep understanding of today's technology, if it started today with a deep understanding of today's digitally native customers, not digitally savvy or like whatever, like digitally native people that are like, have never even, seen a world that didn't have laptops or whatever. Right. And what if it started today without any of the baggage that comes from being a legacy company, right? Stakeholders, leases, debt structures, whatever it might be. So we looked at that and we were like, okay, man, this could be big. So now how do you get there? Despite what we may sound like, we're relatively humble. And we were like, well, we don't want to be those people that talk a big game, but don't have anything to show for it. That's not our DNA. So long story short, we decided that the best way to become the Procter and Gamble of the 21st century is to stack the revenue, focus on profits, and go from there. I want to say one little thing on the side to color that a little bit before I get into the details. As a matter of principle, and I know what I'm about to say is ironic given the fact that I personally invest in about 200 other companies a year. But as a matter of principle, I believe that this large fragmented women's health space will not be disrupted in any large, meaningful way by any VC or investor-backed company. And what I mean by that is that when you're dealing with incumbents that have market caps of $300 billion and have 100+ years of history, you need access to incredibly long-term capital. And even venture capitalists structurally are looking at 10 to 12 year return cycles. The math doesn't work. So I say that because it colors what I'm about to tell you in terms of our history. So we decided like, okay, that's the big kind of thing. We're going to kind of go build or buy this collection of companies that serves mom in that 20-ish year period between the day she decides to conceive and the day that child leaves the house. And how do you build or buy a series of companies that are adjacent to each other such that when that mom spends $10 on the household over that 20-year period, how do you ultimately end up in a place where she's spending 6 out of every 10 with you, whether she knows it or not? So, right. Where did we start? We started with this idea of a subscription box that we call Bump Boxes. So you can, if you go to bumpboxes.com, you'll see that business. And that's the bread and butter. That's where we started. And the idea is that we acquire the mom at the point of conception. She just probably found that pregnancy test to be positive. She's worried about a safe and healthy pregnancy, particularly if it's her first time, like little things, right? So like, for example, when you go down to the aisle at CVS, there's tons of deodorant there. But the reality is, for example, the majority of those deodorants, for example, have metals in them. Right, well, you can't, you're not supposed to put that on your body, but that's not what it would look like. So anyway, we started curating full-size products into a box. And the real innovation there, if you will, was that we pivot around the due date. So for any of the moms listening, please don't punch me in the throat here. Let me just get this thought out. Clinically speaking, what a pregnant mom faces, or expecting mother faces, what her body's doing at month 2 in Maine is clinically very similar to month 2 in New Mexico. So obviously every pregnancy is different, but clinically speaking, it's all the same. So we ended up, setting some standards about, we looked at all the research, the clinical stuff, and we said, okay, here's what the research says. These are the things that moms cannot or should not put on their body. This is science. And we basically went out and picked the products, forced the vendors to formulate whatever we needed, put them into this box. And the idea is mom, for like, $30 a month or whatever she picks, it just shows up. So the anti-itch creams show up at the right time. The anti-stretch mark cream show up at the right time, all these things. So anyway, we built that. That was the core. And we got really good very quickly at figuring out how to make that go. And that's where our relationship with Lucky Orange started. And I'll talk about that here in a minute. But just to fast forward here, that was the core business, bumpboxes.com. And very quickly, so we spent probably the first year, maybe 2 years, really nailing that down. And then what we realized was, hey, this doesn't stop after the baby's born. So then we stood up bitsyboxes.com. And the idea basically is, hey, when you come in, you can sign up for Bitsy Boxes, and it's a subscription box for mom and baby from the day that baby's born to the baby's 3rd birthday. So you can sign up for that anytime, even if you didn't have a Bump subscription with us. But the vast, vast, vast majority of our moms start with us in their first trimester, and they stick with us for 45 months, all the way to the baby's 3rd birthday. Wow. So now just to fast forward a little bit, at a high level, we have a couple different brands. So Bump and Bitsy are part of what we internally call Bump Consumer. That's our subscription services. As an aside, we have subscription prenatals now and a bunch of other things. Second business unit for us is Bump Wellness. That's a white label version of everything we do. So we power the maternity and paternity wellness programs for Pepsi, Hy-Vee, and hundreds of other really well-known companies. And then the third business that we have internally is called Bump Medical. So we have telehealth and durable medical equipment business. That's a fancy way of saying we help mom extract every dollar that's owed to her from her health insurance. So a lot of moms know or might know that they have access to a free breast pump through their health insurance. That's true, but not the entire truth. Actually, if you look at your plan benefits, you have access to $1,000 to $2,000. Anyway, that Bump Medical for free helps mom extract every dollar from her insurance. We actually literally just send her everything she's owed, and then we go deal with the insurance. So it's totally free to her. And then the fourth and most recent business is what we call Bump Life. Mom, it's hard to shop for life, auto, home, health insurance. Because of our scale now, we basically make it one click possible to shop all rates across 50 plus carriers and slice and dice it by price or whatever metric you have. So let me pause there, but again, so today we're 4 major business units internally, and we are moving towards this goal of standing up as many businesses as we can for that 20-year period, and they're all wrapped under that Bump Health umbrella. So let me pause there and kind of see where you want to go with it.
No, that's great. Thanks for taking the time to walk us down that path and share sort of the structure there. I know that a lot of people are curious when it comes to they see a subscription service or subscription box online, and they're curious kind of what sits behind that. In that model, what has been sort of the biggest barriers to conversion for you guys, and maybe even talk to what the different traffic sources look like, and how you have come to conversion rate optimization, even as a concept.
So I think what I'll say is that at our core, we are performance marketers, and I hesitate only because real performance marketers probably will laugh at that statement. But our company DNA from the beginning has always been, around conversion rates. Like, if whether I'm going to get 1,000 visitors through organic or search or paid or whatever channel they're going to come from, doesn't matter if they don't convert. So, I mean, from the earliest days, we watched conversion rate. Now, we kind of joked earlier, I'm telling you a story that's a little bit prettier than reality. I mean, look, here's the truth. In the earliest days, what was happening is that we were running on WooCommerce on WordPress. And we basically built we just stood it up. And so it was just a WordPress site with WooCommerce on it. And we sort of jammed everything into it. And this is embarrassing to say, but it's the truth. The only way we knew if something was broken or working better was because every time a transaction happened on the site, an email went out to the team. And we would just look at that email, that flow of emails. And if it stopped, we'd be like, roll back. And
right.
And if it sort of felt like it sped up, you're like, well, something worked. Okay, do that again. And then and that lasted probably like a few weeks as we kind of got our bearings and tried to figure out the logistics of boxes and stuff like that. But then our second sort of inflection point in terms of technology was really rolling out Google Analytics and sort of attributing everything, tagging every action on the site, and really getting buy-in from everybody in the company. Which was actually, believe it or not, a little harder than you would think. But that's about the time when Lucky Orange came into the picture for us. And then now, well, anyway, so we started with WooCommerce. We then, I think about 2 years after, really decided to go homegrown, build our own system. We had basically maxed out WooCommerce, and it's a great product, by the way, for people that want to use it. But there comes a point when you're so custom that getting deeper into spaghetti and trying to force a square peg into a round hole just doesn't work. And so I want to say it was 3 years ago now, we did a full rewrite, ground up React website with our own dev team and got deeper into the technology. By the way, I don't know if that's really what you're asking, but traffic sources.
No, that's great. Yeah, I think it definitely speaks to the willingness to just go. I think sometimes when we think about conversion rate optimization, we need to just start by saying, are we getting conversions? And if that stops, what's wrong? And if we're not getting conversions, where can we go to look? And Google Analytics is a great starting point for a lot of businesses. And speaking to limitations, I think people do find limitations with Google Analytics. And a lot of times we do see Lucky Orange enter the picture there to say, I'm seeing these numbers, but what's actually happening? What's behind those numbers?
Yeah. I think that I think you're right, by the way. And I one of the things we talk about internally in our company today is this idea that we are no smarter than anybody else in the space at all. The only difference between us and them is that we try more stuff in any given time period than anybody else. And so it really just comes down to sort of, Moneyball. If you remember that movie or that book, I mean, really just comes down to it's not about how smart or how big of the baseball player is. It's about the on base percentage. The more times you get on base, the more likely you are to get to the home run. And
what does that trying look like? Is it testing? Is it just customer voice, surveying? What does that look like?
Well, so I want to give you a complete answer, and then through the magic of editing, you can make us all sound smarter afterwards, I suppose. But look, I think there's two sides to what it looks like. There's one. So what it looks like at its core is, first of all, it starts from the culture. We if you look at the DNA of the four of us, we're always like brute force, try it first. We'll talk about it later, and when I say later, I mean like an hour from now. And, but that doesn't scale to like, we're 100 people now. So how do you do that? Well, we culturally follow a program called EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System. And within that context, there's essentially a weekly cadence. So every single person in the company has a weekly cadence of meeting with their manager. They have 2 to 3 North Stars, like metrics tops. And now with that in mind, let's go down to your, where you're going with the question, I think, which is when you think about the North Star for the revenue team, it fundamentally just comes down to transactions. And, then, okay, if that's the lagging indicator, what is the leading indicator of whether a transaction will happen? It is the conversion rate, And so, so anyway, that was a long way of saying that we have a cadence. Our culture is designed around a weekly cadence of checking in with your manager and your team about, the bigger projects that are happening. But that is a good forcing function that then affects everybody's day. And the way that we think about testing is, I don't know. We're just very aggressive. Like just as an example, right before I got on this video with you, I was like, oh, I have this idea about what the H1 tag on one of our pages could look like. I popped into Google Optimize about 5 minutes before you jumped on, set up a Google Optimize test, and hit the button, and I'll check it this afternoon. Yeah. And then on that side, and actually this is probably the nugget you're really looking for, is that when we test things on page, we have this loose rule of 10,000 sessions or 7 days, whichever comes first. That is the maximum length that any test will run. And that we only ever have to wait for that, on like, maybe an internal page that doesn't have a whole lot of traffic. Like, a lot of our external pages these days will hit those traffic levels in hours. And so we'll know. So, but
Right. And how did you arrive at that number? Is it just the test that you had been running, you'd see statistical significance around there? Or does it mirror the, let's just go for it and say, nice round number, nice even.
Well, I laugh, by the way, because, we've been adapting our culture on the fly. And I think where we are as a company today is we're sort of like adolescent. We're sort of like that 13-year-old gangly armed, we don't know what we're going to look like when we grow up, but we know we're bigger than toddlers now. And I laugh because when we came up with that number, there were two kinds of, I'm going to stereotype a little bit here, but inside the company, there were like essentially two kinds of people, in the context of this. There was the early crew, which was like, hey, let's just try it. And hey, if, by the end of the day, it doesn't work, if the percentages don't work, like just kill it and move. And then there's this other group of like smarter people as we hired more and more people that were like, hey, listen, mathematics doesn't lie, and you need a sample set of X to get to any sort of, statistical significance. And so it was this really interesting push and pull, right? Like one side saying, hey, let's move fast because that's our DNA. And the other side saying, yeah, we're with you, but like, if it's not statistically significant, you're not really making a good decision. There was an awkward period where we tried to figure out what we were going to do. And we decided to just come and meet in the middle and say, look, one side is really worried that we're going to slow down if we wait for statistical significance, which, by the way, on a publicly facing page, we can probably get to in hours or days. But on internal pages, that doesn't work. Like if we're talking about a refer a friend feature that, anyway, you get where I'm going. And so we said, okay, this side, you guys are really worried about slowing down. And that side, you guys are really worried about pulling the trigger too early and not getting there. So we just decided, like, we just had a conversation, said, where's the middle ground that we can all agree? And so we agreed on a metric or a measuring stick that had a session component, which kind of pleased the concerns of the math people, and then a time component, which pleased the brute force people. And again, in that 7 days, think about, like, if you really connect the dots here, by the way, its forcing function was the EOS system. Hey, look, you're going to have a meeting with your boss in 7 days. It's every 7 days. So that's it. So
yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
So
when it comes to, you're talking about the people and the teams working together. And where does CRO as a concept fall, or is it more so, hey, everyone's a part of optimizing this thing?
We have not. Okay, so the short answer is there are probably, so technically everybody has access to it, but realistically, I would say maybe four of us use it on a regular daily. Like we might be eating lunch at our desk and looking at recordings, kind of thing. So that we. Good fun. Yeah. And we don't actually have a formal conversion rate optimization title anywhere in the company. Again, because of our DNA, we want everybody to be accountable, understand where they can get their metrics and that sort of thing. So, but day to day, I would say the four people that probably use it the most is me, my co-founder, Lee, Emily, who is the director of our consumer sales team, and then Brett, who's our CTO. Those are like, if you looked at the login records, I bet you would see those four in there all the time. I think you'll see other people in the company sporadically pop in. Maybe they're looking at, some feature they're working on and trying to figure out what people are doing, but that's probably once a week, once a month kind of thing. But yeah, we don't have a real CRO position. We sort of want everybody to, to know these tools exist and not have to like be gated by some other CRO function or something like that.
Right. It doesn't have to be fancy, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to build walls around it. And knowing that different people with different roles at your company use Lucky Orange, do you collaborate with one another as far as the insights that you see? Do you share them and say, hey, take a look at this heat map? Or is it really see something, take an action kind of in
anecdotally, I would say it's a little bit of both. So our structure is, if you look at our structure, actually, I want to add a little bit of color to something, just because people might listen to this and be like, well, 100 people, that's not me. I think it's important to understand that because we have a physical component, we have warehousing and shipping and logistics and millions of products that come into the warehouse every day and then turn around and ship back out every day. Like something like, so I run the revenue teams, and the revenue teams, I think in a headcount basis, we're probably like I'd have to look at the org chart. I actually have a meeting after this to talk about that. But anyway, I think we're like 20 people tops, and half of those people are customer experience. So where I'm really getting at, by the way, is that if you look at the actual team that is responsible for get new sales every day, and really depending on Lucky Orange, it's less than 10 people. So this is really what we're talking about here, by the way. The reason I say that is because what we're talking about here is accessible to almost anybody, early stage or later stage. You do not have to have 100 people before this is important. In fact, you probably need to make sure the first 3 or 4 people in your company are doing this mentally. And you probably yourself as a founder need to be doing this. So with that in mind, though, I would say that and I said that because your question, I think, is interesting in the sense of how much of this do you share between the team, or, collaboratively looking at recordings versus, hey, somebody sees something and does something. I would say it's probably 80% somebody sees something and does something. And then 20% of the time it's like, hey, I'll get a link like, hey, take a look at this recording. What do you see here? So, and that actually brings me to one thing that I think that people should understand. Like when they think about, a lot of people don't understand why screen recordings or user session recording is important. And what I would say is that like 80% of the time, classic 80-20 rule here, right? 80% of the time, the reason the session recording is important is because you don't know what the customers, like you are not the customer. So when you design that page, when you put the button in a certain place, even if you actively try to suppress your own biases, the reality is you're not the customer. So you've got to be able to watch them. So 80% of the time, we're just randomly watching videos and saying, or sessions and saying like, okay, I wonder what people are doing on the My Account page today, or, I wonder what's going on the checkout flow. Let's check out how people that come from a social media influencer, go through the thing. Now that's cool, but classic 80-20 rule, you got to pay attention to the other 20%. The other 20% is that's really important with screen recordings is sometimes stuff breaks and you don't know. And like people,
Yeah.
when they think about websites breaking, they think about catastrophic, servers down, Amazon's down, whatever, right? But I'll give you an example the other day, and I don't want to like publicly shame a company by name, but I'll happily give you the name offline. But we were testing out a third-party welcome mat. So the idea was like, oh, hey, let's use this third party. The idea would be that when mom's on the website and she does certain behaviors, it'll pop a modal window and maybe encourage her to put in her phone number for SMS or email, whatever. Okay. So I don't want to name the company, but here's the deal. Company's very well known, very well funded. Like, you expect everything to work. So we roll this thing out and it looked fine. We didn't see any problems or anything like that. The next morning, because, with EOS, we have a stand up every morning, it's a 5-minute meeting, whatever. The next morning, we were just doing a quick 5-minute meeting with the leadership team. And one of the guys, Lee, actually on our team was like, something's weird with the conversion rate. It's like it was like a minor, like it was like 0.05% down. Generally speaking, not a big deal. Like traditionally that would not be a big deal for us, but because of our DNA, it was enough to be like, something's weird. And so if you didn't have Lucky Orange, we would have been like, whatever, let's just watch it. It's probably just a weird Tuesday or something. But because we had Lucky Orange that day, we were like, well, so what had happened was checkout performance was like something like 0.05% lower than what we expected on that particular day of the week. Again, how absurd is that, by the way? 0.05, that's ridiculous. But we know. And so we were like, well, we don't have to guess. Let's just pop Lucky Orange right now and look at it. Well, here we go. Like within the first recording, what we noticed was the modal window that popped, and this is somewhat technical, but like the modal window that popped, the way that those engineers, that other venture funded, super smart, well-known company, the way they had done their CSS and their iframe or their frame, there was a slight transparent border that extended out and covered the checkout button. So what was happening was, and you could see it in the Lucky Orange recordings, people were rage clicking. They were trying to like just get to the checkout. So this modal would pop and like people, like 0.05% of people were like, I don't care. And instead of Xing it out, they just tried to click on the checkout button. And because there was this transparent border that you couldn't see, like no human could see it, it covered it up. And the point is, that's the 20%. So if 80% of our, usage of Lucky Orange is really like, hey, let's just see how real people interface with our website and make sure that it's like usable and whatever. The other 20% is arguably the most impactful, is that it helps you find, subtle failures that aren't, that are not catastrophic. Like everybody will know when your website's down, but like the average consumer can't tell you like, hey, I think your CSS or that iframe is weird. Nobody's going to tell you that.
Sure.
So,
yeah, I think that's really important to establish that it's not equal parts, it's 80-20, proactive and reactive.
Bingo.
You have that, hey, we're chasing this objective or this key result or however you frame it. And I know the things I have to do to get there. And one of them is to optimize the website. Well, then I'm going to go and I'm going to establish an hour a day or 2 hours a week or whatever it might be, just to run through session recordings and pull up heat maps.
Yeah.
Or depending on your role, it may be more important for you to keep an eye out for the reactive things.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I'd love to hear your thoughts on is that it does sound like, and in my own practice, finding that thing in the session recording or the heat map is step one. Knowing what to do about it feels more like a muscle that needs practice and needs training. Would you agree with that? Or do you think do you go on your intuition, or is there another step that sits between see insight and do something about it?
Well, I don't think there's another step in between. I mean, if I understand the question right, what I would just say is that, I think, so this is going to sound a little like philosophical, but I'm an optimist. I mean, like, I know a lot of people, I think the majority of people look for 97 reasons why something's not going to work. And I'm the opposite. I'm like, what is the one thing that has to go well for everything to work? And the reason I say that is I fully believe that if you have two rational people that are given the same data set or same fact pattern, they will inevitably come to the same rational conclusion. Now, the reason I'm saying that is that like, I think for the most part, people, if you show people what the problem is, I think most reasonable, rational people know what to do. The problem is most people don't actually know what the problem is. When they think about conversion rates, you could go boil the ocean trying to, like, if we didn't have Lucky Orange that day in that example, and by the way, like, again, I'm just a customer of yours. Like, I think we pay you like $50 a month. I mean, like, you guys should charge me more. I don't know. But like, don't do that. Charge somebody else more. But like, here's the thing. Like, if we didn't have the data, right, that day would have gone so much different, because what would have happened is Lee would have said, it's 0.05% off the conversion rate for the checkout flow. That's kind of weird. And then I bet you Christine, my other co-founder, would have been like, okay, well, let's go check to see what deploys were done and what changes were made. And Brett, our CTO, would probably have gone and checked site speed and all these other things. Like, and those are important things, but instead our first reaction was like, let's just go check the recordings real fast. Because like, what our opinions don't matter. Like, if you have 100 people clicking on your website every day, or 100,000, it doesn't matter. The point is, like, watching people do something is more telling than listening to them. Like, and you can edit this out if you want, but the thing I think about is like, humans are really funny, because like, we say one thing, but we do another thing. So we say we should go to the gym, but then our behaviors are very different. We overschedule ourselves, or we find 17 other rationalizing ways to not go. Right. So same thing here with like web optimization. People will rationalize everything. They'll be like, oh, well, I have to dig and find all these things. Like, oh, if there's a problem, they're going to rationalize and try to like look busy and find all these things, and it's well-meaning or whatever. But the truth is, just go watch people use it. I mean, by the way, this is not a new concept. I mean, this, but like, for anybody listening to this, this is not a new concept. I mean, prior to the internet, people did focus groups. Mm-hmm. So like, when Kellogg's wanted to make a new cereal, they didn't just like spend $1 billion making a cereal machine or whatever. They would like make a couple boxes that didn't have cereal in it, and then they would have a room with a one-way mirror, and they would get 10 random people to come in, and they'd slide this box across the table and say, well, what do you think?
Right. Yeah.
And so it wasn't about like the Kellogg executive saying, God, I really want Frosted Flakes. It's got to have sugar on it. It was more like, well, let's just mock up a box and throw it across 10 random, parents and see if they like it.
Yeah. No,
and so, yeah, and that's what screen recordings are, by the way. I realize there's a lot more to Lucky Orange, by the way, but
no, I mean, that's I think screen recordings and heat maps, dynamic heat maps, they definitely sit at the core of Lucky Orange. And we offer 10 tools in one, and it is a wonderful toolkit. But I think it's important to know that you can pick and choose. And we have chat. Some customers use chat, other customers don't use chat, and that's completely fine.
That's right.
I think that the power lives in that combination of heat maps and session recordings to start, if nothing else. You can find a high-level trend in heat maps and then say, I want to see examples of this behavior playing out in real time.
That's right.
Go watch recordings.
That's right. And I don't know if you guys are openly talking about the next version of your product yet, so you can edit this out. But the biggest thing that we are really excited about, so we filled out the form and features that we're interested in. But the thing that we're really interested in is that some of the new filters that you guys have coming out will allow us to specifically drill down on certain mouse behaviors that we traditionally had to randomly search for. So in the example of that checkout flow thing, we had to watch a couple checkout flows before we saw the rage clicking happen.
Right.
And so, that's the thing we're really excited about, is being able to like filter the sessions. So like today, if I remember right, the sessions can be filtered by the page they're on, and maybe certain other like behavioral or, source attributes. Right. But I'm really excited. We're all really excited about the ability to like filter based on actions. I want to see when people are circling, with their mouse. That might indicate, my hypothesis is that if they're circling over certain parts of the page, they're either reading it or confused by it or trying to mentally process it. That to me, and my hypothesis would be, hey, we got to look at our copywriting or something, or, CTAs right there.
Right.
But then there's that rage clicking component of like, hey, is our page responsive enough? Is it, that sort of thing. So
we're very
again, I'm
excited
probably
to share
jumping
that
ahead
with
here.
you. Yeah,
What's
and
that?
specifically related to events, there's a lot of functionality around that we're getting ready to release into the beta. Even that's being able to select
Yeah.
any element on your site and call that an event and say, this is an
Yeah.
important thing to me. And then furthermore, being able to star those events and say, this is
That's
something
cool.
I want to keep super tight tabs on, and organize them in whatever way you see fit. And, I think that may sound like it can get really complicated really quickly, but based on, our conversation, everything I know about how people use Lucky Orange, it really doesn't have to be. It can be, we have this key landing page. We have a campaign going on right now. We want to see how people are interacting with this new content block we've added or whatever it might be. You can kind of start there and spend a little bit of time with it every week or every day or every month or whatever it is, and just see what you can see.
I mean, I will go one step further, by the way. And again, I have no ownership of your company, right? Like I'm just a customer. I'm like I'm a nobody, right? But here's what I would just say. I put that out there not to be self-deprecating, but just to make sure that people know there's no conflict of interest here. But I would say that if you're starting something, like I don't care if you're starting something right now or you're at a $50 million run rate, it doesn't really matter. You better have Google Analytics, Google Optimize, and a Lucky Orange account on there. And the reason for that is that whether you have 10 visitors a day or 100,000 visitors a day, the fact of the matter is that Google Analytics tells you what happened. Google Analytics tells you what happened. Lucky Orange allows you to watch that, and Google Optimize allows you to play with it, to improve it before you go and make any major changes. And that should be the basic tech stack for anybody doing anything on the internet. Because, you can't, otherwise, what are you doing? Otherwise you're just building a company blind and guessing at what the customer's doing. And I just hope that people
such
take
kind
that
words,
to
Paul. I appreciate it. It reminds me of, that take reminds me of being in the content world myself. It reminds me of creating content just to create content. Like, what are you doing if you don't have a strategy in place? What are you doing if you don't have, you don't need to have your entire customer journey mapped down to the day and have 10 personas and have all this. It's great. You can get there. But if you don't have a strategy in place, if you're not being intentional about what you're doing on your website, you're kind of just guessing and you're kind of just creating to create. And then you end up doing things like testing button color 10 times. And it may do something, but you can be way more educated about that with just a little bit of research.
By the way, like that like boils my blood, by the way, not you, but like that. So here's the thing, like, I hate all this like growth hacking porn that's out there. And what I mean by that is like, people be like, oh, did you check out this article? They talk about like the 3 button types and whatever. And I don't know, maybe I'm like cynical and, as I get older or whatever. And here's my take. I'm like, first of all, look, if it really worked for them, there's no possible way they would write about it. Right. Cause like rule number 1 is if it's working, don't talk about it. And then when you've squeezed all the juice out of it, hey, put it into a blog post, get some like, internet credibility for it, and then move on. So my point is, I think people need to like look past all these like blog posts. Like, here's the deal. In my experience, and again, this is through Lucky Orange, button placement, it tends to be far more impactful than button color or button CTA. Now, don't misunderstand me here. I'm not saying CTA and colors don't matter, but what I'm saying is, like, if you want to drive conversion rates up in a significant way, the first place you start is button placement.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And the only way you'll know how to do that, by the way, again, no affiliation to you guys, is watch the damn recordings, because maybe the mouse tells you like, why is the mouse over there? What are they looking at? Because the mouse is a pretty good indicator of where the eyeball is, right? It's like, what in the world are they looking at over there? Oh, that's weird. Look at the way that shadow is. Mm-hmm. Oh, look, they're circling over that copy. Oh, that's weird.
Or clicking on something that's not meant to be clicked,
oh man, yeah,
that's trust icon or something like that they think, oh, I want to go see the Better Business Bureau reviews or whatever it might
Bingo.
be. That
Bingo.
can be really
Bingo.
frustrating.
Like one of the early things we saw, and I'm misremembering this a little bit, but it's not by much. But like, I remember when we first put our phone number up in the top right of the website, I was like, why are we doing this? Like, whatever. Somebody had a hypothesis of like, oh, it'll be a credibility booster, to have a phone number. And I was like, yeah, but like, that seems, I sound horrible, I realize, but it was so interesting watching the referrals, the videos that day. I expected all of a sudden that like people would start calling in, and not to say that we don't want them to call in, right? But like, I just expected support load to go up. Actually, it did not. In fact, it was really fascinating watching the videos. People's mouse would go up there and circle the number, like literally circle the number, like they were looking at it. And then they would just go back to the checkout flow. And it was almost like when you watch one of those, you're like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Then you watch like 100 of them and you're like, oh, that's cool. So that maybe that means that they think it's like, it feels more comfortable to them that like we're real.
Yeah. And what's interesting about, Lucky Orange tools and conversion rate optimization in general is, of course, you're pushing to optimize for conversions, but you're also getting a better understanding of your customer. You're getting a better understanding of what they want, what they're attracted to. And, there's tools and surveying and announcements and stuff like that to be able to actually say, what do you want from us?
Yeah.
But it helps those conversations you have with your other team members to say, look, people care about our phone number. Hey, customer support team, I think we might need to
remind me again.
Lean into this.
Yeah. Remind me again. How old is Lucky Orange?
Lucky Orange is almost about 10 years old now.
Okay. So I have a story I want to tell you, and you can edit out real quick, but like maybe it'll be interesting. Who knows? So, I was one of the first 3 partners of a venture firm that we started called 500 Startups. And that was in 2010. Now I don't want to make it about 500, but here's the point. I didn't know about you guys personally. I didn't know about you guys until like 3 years ago or whatever, right? That's my fault, not yours. But here's my point. Back then, if you actually, and people listening to this, if anybody does hear this, I'm not lying to you. You can Google this right now. When we built our first office for 500 Startups was built on 444 Castro Street in Mountain View, California. And there's a point to this, and that is when we built that office, one of the most important pieces of the office we built was a UX lab, which sounds fancy. It was literally a conference room with a one-way mirror. Now, again, you guys can laugh at me because I didn't know that Lucky Orange existed back then. But as a venture firm, one of the things we would do is, as we would invest in founders, one of the very first things we'd do is we'd say, okay, all right, you're funded. Good. All right, great. And then we'd put the founders on the outside of that one-way mirror. And if I remember right, we just had like random, like $25 gift certificates that we would give to random people walking up and down that street. And we'd say, hey, for 20, here's a $25 gift certificate. Will you please come hang out in this UX lab for 1 hour? We're going to just put websites on the page for you. And we just want to watch you do it. Like, that's how we had to do it back then. Like I'm 40, I sound like I'm like 87, but like back then, when we had to run up a hill both ways or whatever, we had to like put random people in front of a computer, hook them up to a mic and say, okay, talk to me about the website you're looking at right now. And listen to them say like, well, this page is, I don't know what I'm looking at. Oh, well, what do I do next? And it was so fascinating. On the other side of the mirror, you'd have these like extremely technically savvy founders, like banging like, just click the damn button. It's right there, and it's like, well, guys, like this is what I'm trying to point out. It's like, you're smart, but you're not the customer. And I guess what I'm just saying,
it doesn't really matter what you think, how you designed it. If
bingo,
you think it's the best possible page, it doesn't really matter.
That's the takeaway. Like what you think as a founder, entrepreneur, whatever, is totally and entirely irrelevant. Because the real world, like if the customer doesn't get it, they're never going to convert.
Yeah, it's and for those teams that do have maybe 30 people that are attacking conversion rates, being able to provide an informed and not data driven necessarily, but that qualitative data, at least from Lucky Orange, being able to provide that evidence to say yes to things, and maybe sometimes more importantly, no, here's why we shouldn't proceed that way, or here's a better version of that idea based on this evidence, seems like something that can really help the bigger teams, and for a smaller team or for a team of one, giving yourself that evidence is basically giving yourself confidence to say, this is why we're doing this way. I thought about it a different way. Now I'm seeing these things in this report that tell me otherwise.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, this has been amazing. I kind of want to wrap with one last question for you. And that's for anybody who's either just getting started or has recently started in e-commerce specifically, that's trying to find their footing with their brand and trying to find their footing with increasing conversion rates. What's a piece of advice you'd leave them with?
Okay. So if you're just getting started with conversions and your business and your brand, if that's the question, I'll just kind of repeat what I said earlier, which is you can't possibly know everything. You're not the customer. And so I stand by my statement that, as simply a customer of yours, I'm not an investor or anything like that, but it's like, I think you've got to have Google Analytics, Google Optimize, and Lucky Orange in there. Because you need the analytics to measure stuff that happened. You need the Lucky Orange to kind of watch the recordings and to see why those things happened and what people actually did. And then you use Google Optimize to test it quickly without code and without anything fancy. And that, you got to start there. Like it's got to be there. And just so people know, I'm not like totally full of, BS or whatever. Like we're at a $40 million run rate. And those are still the top 3 tools we use every day. I mean, that's
right.
People like, fundamentals. Well, yeah. So, but if I can help in any way, like I'm pretty active on Twitter and LinkedIn and whatever. And, people can just message me on there and I'll gladly point people at it. I've been kind of kicking around the idea of maybe doing like a working Zoom session one day and just showing people like how we do it. And I think what they're going to find is it's not sophisticated. It sounds scary. It's so basic. I mean, we're still doing the same stuff we did 4 years ago. It just so happens we have a couple extra people with logins now. That's all.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe we can circle back and do a part 2 or redux of this once you get into the new app.
Any way I can be helpful. I'm happy
to
do it.
Changes work for you.
Yeah, man. Happy to do it any way I can. And I just appreciate the opportunity and I we'll bang the drum for you guys. And, again, selfishly, I want my investments to grow faster, but whatever the opposite of selfish is, I just want more people to know these tools are accessible and easy and,
amazing. Available. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time this morning and we'll talk to you soon.
You got it, man. You got it.